Today's episode of Morning Coffee with Cameron is brought to you by my patrons. Not only are my patrons extra awesome and amazing, they get exclusive Vital presets, exclusive sample packs, and other steamy, spicy content too hot for YouTube. Without my patrons, most of what I do on the channel would not be possible. So, if you want to join up and help support the channel, you can do that with the link down in the description. Howdy doody, buckaroonies. Do you like talking to tomatoes? Or maybe even a squash makes you smile? Maybe you even like to waltz with potatoes up and down the produce aisle. Well then boy, have I got a show for you. This is my dad's old screwdriver, but this one here ain't just any old daggum screwdriver. This one is special. You see, this isn't just any old screwdriver. If we take the tip of it off and flip it around, it becomes a flathead screwdriver. But wait, there's more. If we take the tips out and flip those around, there's even more bits. And with the tip removed altogether, that in and of itself is yet another bit. It's a fascinating little doodad. I keep this screwdriver in my studio every single day on those shelves right there behind me. Not because I need to use it actually all that much, but because when my dad gave this to me, he told me something that really stuck with me. One of the things I respect most about my dad is he's one of those people that can just fix anything. He worked for years doing contractor and repair and installation gigs and stuff like that before he moved up to what he does now, as he likes to call it, being Supreme Allied Commander-in-Chief. When he gave me this, what he told me is that out of all the years he worked those kinds of jobs, it was surprising how often he could show up to a job with just this thing right here and still get the job done. And I think there's a pretty valuable lesson there. So why does this matter? This is Dad's old screwdriver. This is a drill. And this is a multi-tool. They all cost different prices, they look different, some do more things than others, and some just do the same thing in a bit of a different way. But the key here is that they all can accomplish the same thing. Often, it's not really about having the tool that's the most expensive or the tool that does the most things, it's simply about having the tool that's most efficient for the job. This isn't to say that the multi-tool is entirely useless or that I'm better off always doing things by hand instead of using the drill. These things do certainly have a time and place. But what's the point of all this? Why have I spent all this time talking about a screwdriver? Because I thought this was a music channel. Here's a quick test for you. I've recorded a short piano improv, and I've got 5 different EQs set up with the same low-pass filter. Some of these are free, some of these are pretty cheap, and some are on the more expensive side. Here's what the clean piano sounds like. Now, let's roll through that again and swap between the 5 different EQs, and let's see if you could tell which one does the job best, or maybe which one is the most expensive EQ. So which one of those do you think did the job best? Was number 3 maybe the most neutral? Number 1 maybe added a bit of fullness even though everything was still very filtered, or maybe number 5 was just the most present but neutral? Well, spoiler alert, I actually didn't use any of them. I just used the Bitwig stock filter plugin because it does the exact same thing as any of these, it just does it in less clicks. One of the weird double-edged swords for this day and age of production is that there are nearly unlimited options for everything. There are a billion compressor and distortion plugins, there are hundreds of subscription sample services with nearly infinite sounds and new ones coming every single day. There are thousands and thousands of mastering limiters. There are tons of really high quality sample instrument libraries and free synthesizers and paid synthesizers and anything else you can imagine in between. Although every now and again it's great to get some new gear to explore and experiment with, and sometimes even new gear can inspire an entire session, it's easy to get caught in this trap of kind of subconsciously thinking you need this next new thing in order to get anything done. A few months ago, when I upgraded my studio computer, it was almost comical how many plugins I didn't end up reinstalling. Over all the years I've been doing this stuff, and ever since starting this channel especially, I have accumulated I don't even know how many plugins, but it became really clear to me that when I was going through the process of listing everything out, getting all my license keys and all that stuff in order, that most of it just wasn't doing me any real good when it came to getting the job done. Sure, every now and again something would crop up that became a staple of my workflow, but for the most part, a lot of what I had just sat there gathering digital dust because I would use it for a while, I would really like it, but then I would move on to the next shiny object. Eventually, this sort of built up into this weird anxiety of feeling obligated to use these plugins, not necessarily for any practical reason, but because I felt bad for not having used them in a while. This same sort of paralysis really came to a head when I realized it was impacting not only my music writing sessions, but my sound design work, where I felt this sort of overwhelming weight of all these ideas and projects left unfinished because I felt like I had to wait and revisit them when something new came along, or I felt like it wasn't done yet because I didn't use enough of what I had in order to make it. It just really started to mess up my groove. I think it goes without saying that the creative process is already kind of a long and difficult road, and it becomes really easy to get sucked into this whirlpool of experimenting and trying new things and sort of just goofing around, and it'll catch up with you because you start to realize that out of all the time you've spent working, you haven't actually gotten anything done. As simple as it is, it's sometimes hard to remember that your audience and your clients often really just don't give a shit what you used or how you did what you did to get the end result, as long as the end result sounds good. I can't remember a single instance in my entire life where I've been talking to a non-musician, non-producer type who has said something like, "Wow, I really wish Britney would have used an 1176 on the vocal chain," or "Dude, can you believe Kanye isn't using Gullfoss on the master?" Sometimes it's hard not to lose sight of the bigger picture because we end up sort of producing and engineering things for other producers and engineers to kind of flex our tools and our knowledge and stuff like that, but it doesn't end up making a whole lot of sense because more often than not, they're really not the target audience. It's about not losing sight of the bigger picture, which is the song and the sound itself. If you really want to put this to the test, one sort of interesting experiment you can do is to send something you're working on to some of your mixing and producing friends and see what kind of feedback they give you, and then show it to a few non-producer and non-musician friends. And maybe don't even tell them that it's your song, maybe just tell them it's a new artist you discovered and see what they think of it. Because the difference between the type of feedback you get is pretty drastic. More often than not, I find the most helpful feedback I get is from the non-producer and non-musician types because they're simply judging the thing at face value. They're not sitting there obsessing over every detail and thinking about the 5K on the snare or the snappiness of the mid-range transients of the kick or the ducking of the reverb on the double mandolin layer in the bridge section. They're just listening and trying to enjoy the music. They're not approaching it from the same perspective that we do, because after all, that's our job, is to analyze and critically think about everything, and we have a lot of inside information as to how these things work, but it's really hard to retain that objective sense of just listening to something and being sort of apathetic about it. At the end of the day, with music and sound design, the only thing that really matters is the final thing that hits your ears. How long it took you to make it, the tricks and techniques you used to get from A to B, the tools you used, and how much those tools cost, and all that kind of stuff ultimately ends up becoming just irrelevant. So that's why I keep this screwdriver right over here every single day. Whenever I'm stuck or need some motivation or just second guessing and questioning everything I'm doing, whether it's music or just in life in general, I can look over and remind myself that sometimes it's okay just to do what works. So with that, thank you, Dad, for this old screwdriver that sits right over there, and I think it's gonna sit there for a very long time. That wraps everything up for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully it sparks a bit of thinking and some discussion. And if you liked it and would like more of these, let me know. I've got a few other videos like this I've had sort of on the shelf for a while, but I would be happy to make them if people enjoy this. With that, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. And as always, I hope this inspires you to get out there and make something awesome.